Hello, welcome to a coding challenge where I make exactly this, a countdown clock timer in the browser. Now, I did it with a function called setInterval because it's a nice demonstration how setInterval works, and it's really nice. But I have to admit, I've learned since after making the challenge that it's not such an accurate way of doing it. Number one is if the browser starts to get locked up, setInterval isn't actually going to happen at the correct time, and so your timer can slowly get off over time. More accurate would actually be to check the milliseconds of since the page was loaded, which is something you can do with a function called millis in P5. So you can watch this video. I hope it'll be interesting to you. I'm going to make a part 2 where I redo the timer using millis, and it's perhaps a bit more accurate. But both of them are interesting, useful ways to program things. Okay? Enjoy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, it's a coding challenge. And this coding challenge, I'm going to do exactly that, but I'm going to program it. I am going to program a timer in JavaScript. I'm going to use the P5.js library for some of the elements that I'm going to put into the web page that will do the timer thing. But otherwise, it's just that. A little simple timer. This should be easy. It shouldn't take very long. And actually, the reason why I'm building this timer is because I'm going to do a coding challenge with a timer on, which I've done in the past but haven't in a while. So imagine a timer going on right now. Let's say this is going to take 15 minutes. Think we can do this in 15 minutes? Okay, so what's the functionality that I want? If you ever go to Google, which you probably do, did I plug Google? I didn't mean to plug Google. And if I type in timer 5 minutes, it knows what I'm going to type. That's how crazy it is. You can see I get a timer. So this is basically what I want to program. And if I can make this and make it easy for you to do the same thing, you could probably come up with a much more creative version of this or use this in some other kind of application that you're doing. Okay, so what do we need to get started? Let's leave this page. Let me go to my code here. So there's really nothing in my code but the setup function. And the setup function with the P5.js library is like the page is loaded function. So it's the place you can put all your code when it starts. But actually, what I want to do before I do that is I want to add something to the page itself. So I'm just going to add a paragraph element, and I'm going to put timer in it. And let's just do that for a second. And I am going to hit refresh, and you can see, look, there's that paragraph element there at the top. Now, I forgot there's some styling in here that I don't want, so there it is. I'm going to make it bigger. So you can see that's all I've got so far. But what I want to do is display the amount of time left in that paragraph element, and I'm going to do that with JavaScript. I'm going to control that paragraph through JavaScript. So to be able to access it, I need to give it an ID. Let's give it the ID timer. Again, I don't have to use the word timer, and really this should just say this, right? It's going to be a 5-minute timer to start, and then I'll show you how to set the amount of time that you want. Okay, so what should I do next? Let's leave it blank, or let's just put this in here so we see that there's something there. Hit refresh, there you go. Now I'm going to go into JavaScript, and first I'm going to say no canvas. Because because P5 makes a canvas by default because there's a lot of animation stuff with P5. No canvas will get rid of that. And I'm going to say var timer equals select timer. So I want the select function is in P5 to access a particular HTML element that's on the page. In this case, I want that paragraph element. And I can set its content by saying timer.h, use the HTML function and say this is where the timer will go. So if we see this and I hit refresh, you can see now I inserted that text from my JavaScript program there. Now, what do I actually want to put there? Well, let's start with putting 0. And now what I want to do is I want to every second, and I could do this less than a second, but my timer is only going to be in seconds. I want to every second increase this number. So I want it just to count seconds. Let's start as that first. Guess what? There's a function in JavaScript. This is not P5 now. This is a native JavaScript function called setInterval. And what I could do with setInterval is I could say time it 1,000. Now what does this do? setInterval is saying, hey, I want a certain event to happen every so often. There's also set timeout for I just want this event to happen once. But I want an event to happen every so often. I want it to happen every 1,000 milliseconds. 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. There are 1,000 milliseconds, millis for thousands, in 1 second. So I want the event time it to happen every second. What is the event time it? Well, it's something that I have to make up. And what it is a function. So I can now write a function called timeIt, and this is saying, hey, this timeIt function should happen every second. Now there's some nuance to this, and there's another JavaScript function you could look into called requestAnimationFrame, which is sometimes something you want to use if you want to animate, and your animation might take a certain amount of time, and you don't want to wait. But setInterval is going to work just fine for this timer. And if we're like off by some nanoparsec a second, big deal. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a global variable, and I'm going to call it counter. I'm going to set it equal to 0. And in timeIt, I'm going to say counter plus plus and timer.html counter. So what this is going to do is now it is going to every second increase the counter, and then update the DOM element. Okay, here we go. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Okay, coding. Okay, anyway, so we get a timer and it's counting. Now here's the thing. I want it to count backwards. So I want it to count down to 0, not up, because I want a countdown timer. I mean, we could, and also when it gets to 60, I want it to say 1 minute and 0 seconds and not 61 seconds. These are two different problems. I don't know which to tackle first. Let's do the counting down. Why not? Okay, so let's say, okay, so what I need is I need a variable like lifespan or timer. What's a good word for the amount of time left? Time left equals time left equals, let's just say 60. So what I want to do then, if time left is 60, what I want is to always update time left minus counter. This will work. This is an easy, right? Because I want to count down 60, 59. So when it's 60, 60 minus 0 is 60. When it's 1, 60 minus 1 is 59, etc. Okay, so now 60, 59, 58, 57. Hooray! Okay, so we're in good shape. However, let's make the time left now 65. How can I have it show the amount of minutes and seconds, not just the amount of seconds left? So here we go. Let's write a function. Let's just make this a separate function. And let's do convert, I don't know what to call this, convert seconds. So this function is going to get some amount of seconds into it. So I need to figure out, if I know the amount of seconds, how many minutes? Well, 60 seconds is 1 minute, 0 seconds. 61 seconds is 1 minute, 1 second. So there's a property here, right? I know the number of minutes. How do I know the number of minutes? If I say the number of seconds divided by 60, right? But here's the thing, I don't want to get a decimal result. Let me show you what I mean here, right? So if it's 120 divided by 60, that's 2 minutes. If it's 125 divided by 60, that's 2.083. So I could convert that into seconds, but I just want that number too. And so what I can actually do is I can say floor. Floor is an operation to a number that takes off the decimal place. Even if it was 2.99999999999, I'm still going to get 2. So the number of minutes is floor seconds divided by 60. And then how many seconds do I have left? The number of seconds is what? So let's think about this. Remember how I just said, let's do a simpler example. 5 divided by 2 is what? 2.5. But another way of thinking of 5 divided by 2 is 2 remainder 1. The remainder, right, 122 divided by 60 is 2 remainder 2. That remainder is the number of seconds. So if, by the way, I've gone backwards in time. So all I need to do now is say, I can use the modulus operator. 122 modulus 60, 2. Modulus gives you the remainder of division. So that's the number of seconds left. So S modulus 60. So minutes is s divided by 60, get rid of the decimal. Seconds is s modulus 60, or divide the remainder of the division with 60. So now if I go here, and then I'm going to say return minutes plus a colon plus seconds. And there's some formatting stuff I probably want to do to this. So now I can say convert seconds, and I can add, so I'm just taking that number and passing it through this convert function that I just wrote. And now we have 1 minute and 5 seconds, and then 59 seconds. So there's some awkwardness there because I probably should use the same number of digits no matter what. So there's, I believe there's a number format function, I think in P5, nf p5js. Let's look at the reference. It's a function called nf, which is, let's look at this, number format. So number format is the number of digits to the left of the decimal and the number of digits to the right. So I can use number format to say I always want 2 digits. Oh, this is good. So I can say number format minutes 2, number format seconds 2. And now if I do that and go back, there we go. Now let's change it to 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. There we go. Now this is awkward because really if I want to have a timer, I probably want to say the number of minutes. And of course I might want to say the number of minutes and seconds, all that sort of stuff. But now I've got this timer. What I want to do actually, what I want to be able to do is just add, I want to be able to add something to the URL. So this might be something you may or may not be familiar with. You've probably seen this. You go to URLs all over webs and websites, and you see question mark, something equals something, ampersand, something equals something. These are what are known as URL query parameters. So what it's saying is this web page, when it runs, is going to get past this data. It's going to get past the number 5 associated with the variable, so to speak, it's key value pairs. The key is min for minutes, the number is 5. And I actually probably don't even, I could just do this, something simpler. I don't need to be so elaborate. But there's actually a thing in P5, query, how did I go back here? Query, URLparams, yeah. So this is what I want, URLparams. This function is a function that gives you those URL parameters dynamically. It's a P5 function that wraps all this sort of native JavaScript you would need to do this. So now what I can do is I can say var minute, so let me just say params equals, and what was the name of that function? getURLparams. And then I can say var minutes equals params dot minute. Let's just call it minute. And then I can say time left should equal what? Minutes times 60. There we go. So now if I go to here, okay, so what did I forget? So now if I go to here, now let's figure out what happens if I don't give it anything. So now I get this, because I didn't account for the case where I don't give it anything. So I should probably say if params minute, like if that parameter exists, and I should also probably say if params, I should probably check to make sure it's a number. Oh, so much error checking. Oh, it's exhausting. Let's just do this for right now. So time left by default is going to be 300. Only if I give it something will I get something different. So we can see now, let's see what's going on here. Let's look at those parameters. Did I mess something up? Oh, do I have like an error somewhere? Oh, whoops, console log. What's going on? I've got a little debugging problem here. Oh, it worked. I don't know, it works. So it's 5 minutes if there are no parameters. Now, oh, I don't have to change my code. Let's go in here and type question mark minute. Did I say minute or minutes? I don't remember. Minute equals 3. 3 minutes. All right, so you can see now I can make it minutes equals 50 minute timer. So now I have a generic web page that any amount that I plug into it, it runs a timer. Now, if I say 65, it's not giving me 1 hour. So I'm going to leave this as an exercise for you, but let's at least make it ding when it gets to the end. Of course, now I can only make it a 1 minute timer. So let's leave it at 1 minute for a second. So I have a nice little sound here. I'm going to, it's called, it's a file in my folder called ding.mp3. And I am going to, when the timer is up, I am going to say, I'm going to add a function preload, which is a function for P5 where I can load media assets. And I'm going to say var ding equals load sound ding.mp3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here, when counter equals time left, yes. If counter, right, that's when it's over. If I start with 60 and the counter gets up to 60, if counter equals time left, then ding.play. But I also want to do some other things, right? I want to stop the timer from going. First of all, I could just have it start over again. Let's just do that for right now. I'm going to say counter goes back to 0. And let's just have counter go back to 0. So that'll be a nice way. So I could have the timer stop and I need a button for restart. It could do a lot of things, but I'm just going to play the sound and have the timer restart by going back to 0. And incidentally, or I could have it just completely stop. Let's also show you how to have it completely stop. So one thing I should show you here is, I'm just going to move this up here for my own eyes here, because setInterval actually returns a value. And if you ever wanted to stop your setInterval from continuing to go, you need to call a function called clearInterval. So I'm going to say clearInterval and set the counter back to 0. Or I'm going to comment that out. So this should actually stop it. So let's just give it like a 10-second timer for testing when I don't pass in minutes. So now here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! There you go. JavaScript counter made with P5.js and some other stuff. There's so much you could do with this, so many features you could add, and things, creative kind of twist on it, or maybe you just needed an interval for something. So I hope you enjoyed that coding challenge. As always, check this video's description, which will have a link to this code. If you use it or make your own variation of it, where you find that code, there might be a README file that you can add a link to your version of it to, all that sort of stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next coding challenge. Okay, I'm back actually at the end of this video to do a quick addendum. I'm just going to change this timer to use millis instead of actually using setInterval to rely on a specific second pass. So even if setInterval is off by a little bit, millis will never be off. So let's look at how I could do that. So whenever the timer starts, and I guess the timer starts just when the page loads, I'm going to have a variable called start time. And I think reliably, the millis function is going to, when the script first loads, is going to be at 0. But I'm just going to, for the sake of argument, I'm going to say start time equals millis. So I'm just going to, when setup runs, I'm going to check and see what the start time is. Then what I'm going to do is in the timeIt function, forget about this counter thing. The counter is now completely irrelevant, because what I want to do instead of having the counter is, and I'm going to call this current time. I want to say current time equals, what do I want? I want the current millis minus the start time. And then what I want to do is divide that by 1,000 to get the number of seconds, right? Because if 5,000 milliseconds have passed, that's actually 5 seconds. And because my timer is just by the second, I don't worry about 5.3, 5.23 seconds, although you could worry about, you could make a more sophisticated timer that does that. I'm just going to say floor, and I'm going to floor that to take off the decimal place. So now I think, let's just see. I have an error. Sketch.js line 35. I guess I'm missing a parentheses here. Because what I want is this divided by this and floor the whole thing. Okay, let's come back, reload, sketch 30, counter. So I guess I have a reference to 30 still. Oh, right. Oh, time left minus, so current time needs to be a global variable. So current time. And then in places where I'm using counter, I need to say current time. And probably here too, current time. And did I use 2 T's in current time? I did. So let's go over here. Let's first of all move this like this if I have. Okay, so now it's the same exact timer, but I'm pretty sure it's more accurate. If I were able to do something like lock up the browser, that doesn't really do it. I was trying to figure out a way to lock up the browser, then that should work. So this should be better. There we go. I'm seeing lots of things in the chat, like maybe I'm doing this incorrectly. But I think that's the end. Millis does handle start time for me. So I probably could be fine with actually, let's just see. I'm going to get rid of this. Yeah, so I don't really need to, I'm going to get 0 by definition. That setup is going to kind of run right at 0 milliseconds. But the reason why I'm doing that is if I ever want the timer to restart, I need to start at some other milliseconds. Okay, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.